The 911, caller from an empty house, upstate New York, 2006. It was late on Halloween night, just minutes before midnight, when the 911 call came through. Mark Jacobs, a seasoned dispatcher working the night shift, answered the phone. At first, all he heard was static, but then came a child's panicked whisper. "Help, please. He's inside." Mark straightened in his chair, his fingers poised over the keyboard. "Who's there with you, sweetie?" he asked calmly. There was a long, shaky breath on the other end. "He's downstairs," the boy whispered. "He's coming up the stairs now." The child's voice was trembling with fear. "Stay on the line with me," Mark said urgently. "Can you hide? Tell me where you are." The child's voice dropped to a near whimper. "I'm in the closet. Please don't let him find me." Mark heard the sound of heavy footsteps. Thump, thump, thump. Then the unmistakable creak of a door opening. A crash echoed through the line, followed by a piercing scream. And then, abruptly, the line went dead. Heart racing, Mark immediately dispatched 2 officers to the address. It wasn't far from the station, and within minutes the patrol car arrived. Officers Gary Holt and Sarah Miller approached the house cautiously. The front door stood ajar, swaying slightly in the breeze. The house was dark and eerily silent. Flashlights in hand, the officers called out, but no one answered. They began to search the house and quickly realized that something was off. The rooms were coated in a thick layer of dust. Spider webs hung from the ceilings, and old furniture sat untouched, as though no one had lived there for years. Then Officer Holt noticed the phone, an old rotary model sitting on a dusty hallway table. He picked up the receiver. It was cold, and when he checked the line, it was dead. Confused, they checked the phone records. The line had been disconnected for over 20 years. When the officers returned to the station, they told Mark what they had found, or rather, what they hadn't found. No child, no signs of life, just an abandoned house, locked in time. Shaken, Mark reviewed the call log and listened to the recording again. But this time, what he heard was different. There was no child's voice, only the crackling sound of static, followed by a deep, rasping whisper. "We've been waiting." The case was quietly filed away, and the house was boarded up soon after. But every Halloween night, dispatchers in that area report receiving phantom calls from the same address, calls filled with static, followed by the sound of small footsteps and the faint, desperate whisper, "He's coming." The Phantom Trick-or-Treater. Illinois, 1995. It was Halloween night in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Crisp air, glowing pumpkins on porches, and children laughing as they ran from house to house. Just after sunset, several neighbors noticed an unusual visitor. A young boy, dressed as a clown, knocked on their doors. His costume was strange, an old, faded jumpsuit paired with a porcelain mask that looked antique, as though it belonged in a museum. He was polite, one neighbor, Mrs. Harwood, later recalled, but off. He never said anything more than trick or treat, and even that sounded strange, like he was reciting it, not meaning it. The boy carried a small pumpkin bucket, chipped and scuffed as if it had been used for decades. When asked where his parents were, he didn't answer. He simply stood still, watching, as if waiting for something. Mrs. Harwood noticed his mask, porcelain, with large blank eyes and a small, unsettling smile. Other neighbors recalled the same encounter. "It was odd," said Mr. Quinn. "I watched him leave my porch, but he didn't go to the next house. He just stood there on the sidewalk for a minute, looking around like he was lost." The next morning, neighbors began asking one another if anyone recognized the boy, but no one did. None of the local parents knew him, and no one had seen him with other trick-or-treaters. Curious, Mr. Quinn reviewed his home security camera footage, and that's when things got truly disturbing. The boy hadn't come from the street like the other children. On the video, he simply appeared at the edge of the camera's frame. One moment, there was nothing. The next, the boy was standing there, still as a statue. In another clip, as he turned to leave, he looked directly into the camera. For a brief moment, his mask seemed to move. The porcelain smile twisted into a sneer. Later, Mrs. Harwood contacted the police, worried the boy might be missing. But no children matching his description had been reported missing. And after searching through old town records, the police discovered something even stranger. In 1952, a boy from the same neighborhood had gone missing on Halloween night. Witnesses said he was last seen dressed as a clown, with a porcelain mask. The boy never returned, and he was never seen again. But every few years, on Halloween night, neighbors swear they see a child in an old clown costume, silently walking the streets. The Vanished Hiker on the Appalachian Trail, Virginia, 2018. Ashley Kramer had planned her solo hiking trip for months. She wanted to spend a few days alone in the woods, taking in the beauty of the fall foliage along the Appalachian Trail. She was experienced, careful, and well-prepared, with maps, supplies, and a GPS tracker. Her trip began smoothly, with clear skies and crisp autumn air. On the first day, she hiked deep into the woods, enjoying the sound of leaves crunching beneath her boots. But that night, something strange happened. In her journal, she wrote, "I thought I heard footsteps outside my tent tonight. I called out, but no one answered. Maybe it's just wildlife." The following morning, she pressed on, though her journal entries grew more unsettling. "I feel like I'm being watched. I can't shake the feeling. I keep hearing whispering, but every time I stop to listen, it disappears with the wind." By the third day, Ashley's notes became frantic. "There's someone out here. I saw him, standing among the trees. He was wearing old clothes, like something from another time. I called out, but he didn't move. Then he was just gone. I'm not alone out here." That was the last entry. When Ashley didn't return, search teams scoured the trail. They found her backpack abandoned at the edge of a cliff, but no other sign of her. Her tent, sleeping bag, and phone were missing. Weeks later, another hiker passing through the area received a phone call from Ashley's number. He answered, only to hear a faint, desperate whisper, "Help me, I'm lost." The call ended abruptly, and when the hiker tried calling back, the number was disconnected. Park rangers searched the area again, but found nothing. No footprints, no equipment, no Ashley. To this day, hikers on that stretch of the trail report hearing whispers on the wind. Some say they've even seen a lone figure in the woods watching from a distance. A woman pale and silent with fear in her eyes, as if she's forever trying to find her way back.